This is the Decibel Geek Podcast with Chris Czynszak and Aaron Camaro.
We're back once again, ready to rock your socks off. This is the Decibel Geek Podcast. We love to talk about rock and roll, and we love it when you listen to us do it. My name is Aaron Camaro, and I'm always joined by my rock-loving friend, Chris Czynszak. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. This is the first of two parts of something we're very excited to share with you all.
Yes. You know, we went over and visited Michael Wagener, and everybody that listens to this show knows who that is. We have sung this guy's praises for years. When we first started doing this, it was obvious that we had to find Michael Wagener because we knew he was here in Nashville. And, you know, we always had such a good rapport with the guy once we met him and got him on the show. And we did Albums Unleashed with him on two of the most important albums around. And when we found out he was retiring, we said, we got to get him back one last time. If he's not doing interviews anymore, we got to have him on the Decibel Geek one more time.
Yeah, and he, we had done that producer switch episode where he came up, of course, a couple of times, and hadn't really approached him, but like he came to us and was like, I want to give my final interview to you guys. And yeah. Was a huge honor, and we actually went out to lunch with him, and he told us he was going to do Eddie Trunk's show, and then he was going to do our show, and Eddie Trunk's show came out as of the time you're hearing this a couple of weeks ago, and then we went over there and spent a good chunk of the afternoon with him, and he had great stories, and I think we touched on a good number of things that no one's asked him before, so I'm excited to share it with everybody.
So, before we get to all that, do you want to take care of our business, or should I go ahead and give the Decibel Geek Podcasting Pro Tip of the Week?
Let's go ahead and give the pro tip now, because a lot of people fast forward through the business.
Okay, well, let's give the pro tip of the week. First time, hopefully only time, on the Decibel Geek Podcast. And here's your pro tip from Aaron Camaro. If you are using an external recording device, not the kind you hook actual microphones up to, just the kind like you set in the middle of the table and let it rock. Those things are great. You can take them anywhere. They're small, they're compact. You can do all kinds of stuff with them. Very versatile, very fun. But what we learned is that if you're using one of them, you can't put your phone by it. Yep. So while we're talking to Michael Wagener, we're all sitting on a little round table, and we got our phones out. You'll hear I've got his discography open on my phone. And we got your listener questions, and so we're on site with him at the studio where there is nothing that he can record us with, because otherwise, like in the past, it's pristine when Michael Wagener does it.
Yeah, exactly.
But for us foolish people, after all these years of doing this podcast, we're all leaned up on that table, huddled around the Zoom recorder, got our phones out, and you're going to find some electronic feedback on this. Now, it's annoying as hell. I'll give you that. It's bad. But you can still hear everybody. It's kind of in the background a little bit. It comes and goes, and after a little while, it goes away. So we do have some technical issues on this show this week, but nothing too severe. And if you can muscle through it, you're going to enjoy one hell of a conversation with Michael Wagener, I promise.
Yeah, I think it's after like the first 5 or so minutes, it tends to get better. So you hang in there and enjoy.
I'm so embarrassed.
Live and learn.
Yeah, go to Wire World Studio and, can't rely on the master to record us and leave it in our hands, and what happens. But like I said, it's going to be amazing and you're going to love it. So, with the Decibel Geek Podcasting Pro Tip out of the way, let's handle our business. And you know us, our favorite thing in the whole entire world is podcast reviews. We like to get them from Apple Podcast. We like to get them on the Podchaser website. And we definitely love those Facebook recommendations. And we've got one right here. It comes to us from Apple Podcast. And it's a good one because it's got all 5 stars. It's entitled 80s Judas Priest Episode. And it goes like this. Love the podcast. You guys have done it again. Just like the 70s Priest episode, the 80s Best and Worst has reminded me of how awesome this band is. Keep up the good work, guys. You are helping in keeping metal and hard rock alive. Best music podcast out there for sure. P.S. I agree with you guys. There really is no worst when it comes to Priest. And that comes to us from Lothar277 on Apple Podcasts from Canada.
That's awesome. Lothar, I like the name. That's great.
Yeah, very cool. Love that review. If you guys think you can do as good as that one, I dare you to accept this challenge. All you got to do is go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review, go to Facebook, leave us a recommendation, or check out Podchaser. While you're there, you're going to find all kinds of cool recommendations to other cool podcasts. You'll find really good details about the podcasts on Podchaser. So any one of those places, we love it.
Yep, thanks for sending those in, and keep them coming, and we look forward to getting more. So last bit of business, the Geeks of the Week this week.
Our favorite people in the whole world. These are the ones they took last week's episode, which was a fun one. We had a lot of love for that best and worst of Judas Priest episode. We had our good friend Mark Striegel on there with us, and he was invaluable to have with us because he was so into Priest when all this stuff was new. It was great to have that perspective, and it was a good episode. I can always tell when we have fun recording it, it's going to be good.
Yeah, it was great to have Mark on, and we had a blast talking about that discography, and it's going to be interesting to do the best and worst of 90s Priest, huh?
Not looking forward to that one as much, and probably going to have a little tougher time finding our third co-host to do it with us.
Yeah, for sure.
But we could always try it. You never know. As a matter of fact, we were just talking on the last Decibel Geek Friday Night Live. In case you haven't heard, we brought it back last week, and we're doing it again. Hopefully you're hearing this Friday morning, so that means we're doing it tonight. And, join us on Facebook for that. But we were talking to our friends on there about, what other bands would you like to see us do best and worst on. And we had all kinds of really great recommendations on bands to do, some really good ones. So look forward to busting out more of that. Maybe 90s Priest, we'll push that one back a little bit.
Yeah, we'll do it in 2056.
Yeah. But when it comes to 80s Priest, man, everybody loves it. And that's why so many people got out there. They shared it. They retweeted it. I'm talking about the main post on our Facebook page or on our Twitter account. I even think we got some Instagram going on out there. I don't know if we keep track of those as good. But we do keep track of the Facebook. We do keep track of the Twitter. And the people that share and retweet the episode, well, man, they're the one and onlys. Our Geeks of the Week.
Geeks of the Week this week are Adam Cox, Rock and Run Runyon, Darren Lanou, John Verno, Mark Alden Taylor, Mark and Jerry BS Sessions, Aaron Baker, John Phillips, Brian Harris, Jay Shabluski, Pantheon Podcast, Keith Rockford, Mark Striegel, Sit and Spin with Joe, David Glenn, Mike Parnell, Kristen Schimbeck, Alan Deshawn, Nick Minnow, Hakon Bergstad, JJP Body of the Soul, Daniel Lee, Kevin's on Fire, Ernesto Aguiar, JJ McElhenney, MJ Condeleone, Jeff Taylor, Focus on Metal, Vet Halen, Lil Willie, A to Z, David Cathy, Scott Crouch, and as always,
the Mooger Fooger. That's right. Those are our people, our Geeks of the Week. We thank them for sharing the episode and helping us get the word out about what we got going on here at the Decibel Geek Podcast. And what that is a whole lot of talk about a whole lot of rock. And we're going to get to it. You guys are going to love this. This man's legendary. This is the final interview he's ever going to do. And he chose to do it with us. Why? Because Chris and I are awesome, and we've got the most kick-ass listeners in the entire world. So you guys kick back and enjoy this one. It's part one of the final interview with Michael Wagener.
Well, first off, good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah.
And what have you been filling your time with other than this amazing truck we just saw?
That's
outside?
it.
That's it.
That's it. I wake up in the morning and I go, what do I have to do today? Nothing.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to do anything. And I very much enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so, and then finally, after a while, you come up with stuff that you have to do. So I bought this truck, and it's going to keep me busy for a while.
Yeah, and obviously we're an audio podcast, so you can't see it, but this truck that Michael bought is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, 1952 Ford F1 in Ferrari red. It's pretty amazing.
And another thing you also can't see is that we are actually recording in Wire World Studios for maybe the last time something gets recorded in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess it would be the last thing that gets recorded in here.
Well, you brought the recorder.
Yeah.
I don't even have a recorder here anymore.
Right.
No speakers, no anything. A couple of guitars I left.
Yeah,
and that's it.
I'm really contemplating buying one of these guitars as long as I don't get a divorce from doing it. But,
and all the others, you can still see where the cases were.
Yeah.
But everything else is in New Zealand.
Yeah, so a lot of people had asked us, even in private conversations, like, well, what the hell happened to all of his stuff? And I mean, a lot of people think, well, the studio bought it. But no, it was one of the bands you produced bought the studio.
Right. It's the band Black Smoke Trigger from New Zealand, and I did with them, I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. We did a record together, and they were keen on the studio from the first day on. And I think they're pretty well off, so...
They must be.
So they go, we're going to buy your studio one day. I go, sure.
Yeah.
And then, I had that stroke in last March, and I decided, that's it, I'm out, I will not move on with this. And then they said, so how about the studio? And we, agreed on the price, and then we started packing it up and sent it to New Zealand.
Wow.
Took 2.5 months on the boat to get there. But it's there.
They're going to open up the studio / Michael Wagener Museum in New Zealand.
Their own studio, but they're building a new building with a new studio facility in it.
Yeah.
And they're going to reproduce exactly the setup like it was here.
Wow.
They kind of have to because... the cables have a certain length, so they have to set it up the same way and put the holes in the floor.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, and you're clearly enjoying retirement.
Oh, I love it.
But when you saw all the stuff, getting shipped off, was there a little bit of sadness?
No, because we were so busy packing everything up. You can imagine all this stuff that I've collected over 50 years, basically.
Yeah.
Had to get packed up in cardboard boxes and then into a container, and that was about a couple of weeks after that. I'm at the house and I go, I'm going to go to the studio and listen to. No, I'm not. I don't have any speakers there anymore.
You should have kept at least a couple of speakers.
Yeah, well, I have up front. But,
Yeah, okay.
But sometimes when I see like microphones and advertisements, and I go, oh, I have one of those. No, I don't. And as you know, pretty much the motto was one of each, two of most, and three of some.
Right.
And there was a lot, I think 270 microphones.
Wow.
And stuff, and it all went. So I finished mentally with that part of my life,
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever been asked this. So, you're from Hamburg originally. Grew up there, correct?
No,
You did not.
I'm from a city called Wuppertal, which is right next to Solingen, where all the knives and stuff comes from there. But when I got drafted to the army when I was 19, they drafted me to Hamburg, which was 350 miles away from where I grew up, and that made practice with accept very hard.
That's one of my questions.
Yeah.
Was that's on Wikipedia, and I was like, is that really true?
Yes.
And what did you think about military service?
Well, you have to go. In Germany, you get drafted, so you have to go.
Right.
And me being the practical guy, you have to go for, I think, 12 months. I don't know. No, you have to go for 18 months, and then I became a career soldier for 24. But as a normal guy in the army, you make $150 a month. I made $1,500 a month. And I got paid off at the end. So, okay, go 6 months longer and make a little bit of money. But then I got stuck in Hamburg. I got actually married during that time. And so, I moved to Hamburg officially after the army.
But to bring up Hamburg, I was thinking, obviously you're well aware, I'm sure, that the Beatles got their early start
Oh, really?
playing in Hamburg. Yeah. But
Yes, I am.
I deserve it.
Who's this Beatles you talking about?
Yeah.
Playing places like Kaiserheller and the Indra Club. Did you ever?
Kaiserkeller, yeah.
Did you ever get to go to any of these?
Oh,
venues?
absolutely, yeah. Even while I was still at the Army. We went there, and the other time was with Udo together. Udo came up there, and he got drafted up there as well. Mm-hmm. So we went to the Kaiserkeller in Hamburg and realized, damn, this is where it all started. That's why I got kicked out of school, Yeah,
because from what I read, the conditions weren't great in Hamburg at the time they were played there. Like it was kind of a seedy
especially
town.
not for them in '63 or '62.
Yeah. So, I don't know if I've ever asked you this before. Did were the Beatles a big influence on you? Were you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you were a fan.
Yes. I was in high school and I was never really happy there. And then when the Beatles came out, I go, that's what I want to do. And sure enough, probably a year later, I got kicked out of high school, but I got, I want to be like the Beatles, but you have to understand, I don't know how it was over here, but in Europe, people went crazy for them. They went crazy. And you couldn't understand a very normal person. You talk to a normal, and the Beatles came out, and they completely freak out. Yeah. I was never that bad, but I did like them. Yeah. There was something to that band that,
It seemed like they really changed the whole culture at the time.
Completely.
Everywhere,
Yeah, just overnight. It was,
So then, did you grow up with Udo? Were you guys little kids together?
Yes. We went to school, to what do you call it, elementary school?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got schooled, in Germany now you go to school when you're 6 years old.
Okay.
I got in with 7 years because I was in the hospital for 11 months. Had some kind of operation, which I can't remember what it was, when I was 6. So I got to school a year later, and I was in class for about a week. And then Udo came in because they had just moved from Berlin to where the school was.
Okay.
And and on the first day, I sit in class. I didn't know him from anybody, and he sat like 2 rows behind me. And in the middle of the class, all of a sudden, there's music starting. It was Don't Ha Ha by Casey Jones. I don't know if you even know that
know
song.
the artist, I don't know the song.
Yeah. And so you imagine that. We're sitting in class, there's some guy up front talking, and then blaring is this music from 2 rows behind me. And I turn around, and it was Udo, and he had one of those little single record players where you push the record in and it automatically starts playing on battery.
Oh, wow.
And that happened in class. That happened by itself. So that's how we met. And we were friends from that minute on and really close. I mean, we would hang every day, grow up, go to dancing school together and stuff like that. So, we were friends all the way. And then later on, when I went to high school, he started working at his dad's company. And so we got separated just a little bit, but we saw each other once in a while. And then later on, when we were like 12, 13, we got together again. And then we were listening to music together, and, we did the band together, which was called Band X, for lack of a better name, which then turned into... we found the name Accept, and then made it Accept. And basically, a couple of weeks later, I got drafted. So,
what was the inspiration for the name Accept?
We were looking for a name, obviously, and so we went through all of Udo's vinyl records. And there was a Chicken Shack record that was called Accept. That's where we saw that.
Wow. I always kind of wondered that.
Yeah, I never knew what it was either.
There's other people that wanted that too.
Yeah. Now everybody knows.
Let's go a little forward. Like, so the 80s in particular, there was quite a group of producers, yourself, obviously, Beau Hill, Ron Nevison, Bruce Fairbairn, Bob Rock, that were like the go-to guys in that decade. What were your relationships like with them back then? Was there like a healthy rivalry between any of the producers, or were you guys friends and talked, or how did that work back then?
Well, I was pretty green when I came over from Germany. I came over the first time in '79, invited by Don Dokken, and showed up at his door one morning and going, "Hey," and he goes, "What are you doing here?" And then deciding in '79, this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
I came back in '80, got a job at Larrabee Studio on Hollywood Boulevard, and it was very different from Germany.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a green card, and the situation was pretty bad at the time financially. So at the end of late 1980, I went back to Germany.
Yeah.
And Udo, with Accept, they were going on tour with apparently Van Halen at the time, which never came together, but we went on tour with Judas Priest instead. And I was their sound engineer.
Oh, cool.
So we were back together in that way, but, so I had a job and so on and so on. And but I always wanted to go to America. Ever since I was here, I go, this is the place where I belong and where I can be somebody, Udo and I, we created Double Trouble Productions.
Right.
That was him and me. And I saw that, obviously, on a Steve Ray Vaughan. I go, we're in Germany. Nobody will ever know. Sure. So anyway, but we called it Double Trouble Productions, and then Udo went back to Accept at the time, and I went to America in 1984. So then I took over the company, and but we did Raven, the Awful One together.
Yeah.
And Faithful Breath was another band which you probably heard of every day, right?
Oh, yeah. I have their whole collection.
It was there was the ones with the horn, the Vikings, but it was real heavy metal.
What was it called?
Faithful Breath.
Faithful Breath.
Yeah.
Never heard of that.
And Udo and I, we produced that one together. There's pictures of that too. And then I moved to America and started doing, Don Dokken's albums. And in 1984, it started with White Lion, and then Metallica at some point, Poison, all these guys, and Keel, and I mean there was one record after the next.
Yeah.
I couldn't even, the telephone wouldn't stop. And the first big record was Dokken's Under Lock and Key.
Well,
that was the one that went multiple platinum, and ever since then, the telephone didn't stop ringing.
Yeah.
So there was not like any kind of relationship. I didn't really know any of the other producers. I met Beau Hill when he was doing Rat, and I think I met Ron Nevison and Keith Olsen and all those guys, but that was just hello, and I don't think it was a competition because at that time there was enough to do for everybody.
Yeah,
because
everybody's
rock was
getting
exploding.
calls.
So
that was the time.
There was plenty of work to go around for everybody, I guess. Yeah, but yeah, I just didn't know because us as fans were like, oh, I like this one that Michael did, and I like this one that Bo Hill did. And, I just thought we like to pit bands against each other, but even nerds like Aaron and I, we pit producers against each other.
Definitely have.
It's one of those things that comes up in discussion regularly.
For sure. Yeah, because when I was a kid, I never thought about, the producer of the album. I just listened to the music, heard the band, never really thought any much deeper about it, anything about what it took to make this album or anything like that. I was just listening to it. And then when you get older, I guess just being the kind of guys we are, you start looking at stuff like that. Well, this album's got this sound to it, and that makes sense because so does that album, and it was the same guy producing it. And so it opened up a whole new world to me of being able to think a little deeper than beyond the music and what makes it that way, and what makes me appreciate a lot of these albums.
Were there producers that, when you were coming up that you looked up to and wanted to emulate what they did?
Yes, Roy Thomas Baker was, obviously did the first 4 Queen albums.
Yeah.
And then everything I liked after that, from Journey to Cars and everything, he was always my idol. And then when Def Leppard came out in AC/DC, it was Mutt Lange.
Mutt Lange, yeah.
So between the two, they were both very excessive in different directions.
Right.
I asked Roy one day, when we need a big room to do the drums in for the Dokken album it was, and he goes, rent the Forum. And he meant it.
That's a very Roy Thomas Baker thing to say.
Yeah, he goes, you can just rent a mobile truck, drive it in there, and then record on the stage of the Forum.
That's a big enough room.
Yeah.
Okay. And actually, we ended up recording at Royal Recorders with Skid Row. That was his tip, too. He had recorded T'Pau there, and that studio, Royal Recorders, had a convention center right next door. And that convention center had 120 cars in it. That's where the drums for Skid Row were recorded.
Wow.
We actually had to tighten it down. It was too big.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah.
It was, and you worked at, several studios all over L.A. What ones were the ones that stood out as like some of your favorites to work in? Well,
I worked a lot at Amigos Studios, which was the old Warner Brothers, where Eddie did some stuff, and a whole bunch of people where you go, really? That was a great studio, and it was a great studio because of the owner, Chet Himes, who passed away a couple of years ago. He was amazing, and I learned so much from that guy, and stuff where you go, that's how you do that? Yeah, of course. And then he would give me those tips. I would try them. They would work, and I felt at home there. And then there was like new management came in, and it kind of went a little bit down the drain, and the guy on the first day collected all the gold and platinum albums from all over the studio and put them in his office. So right there, say no more.
Yeah.
But the studio was always cool, and you would be recording, and I would be doing White Lion, and you could walk through the control room. There was a door on each side, and all of a sudden, this guy walks in and stops and looks at us and say, "What's love got to do with it?" and walks out. And we look at each other, and it was Ike Turner. And that would happen all the time. Al Cooper, not Alice, but Al Cooper would come in with a black Strat and gave it to Vito. And Vito would go, "Wow, that's all rusted." And he goes, "Yeah, that belonged to Jimi Hendrix." And Vito started shaking.
Wow. Yeah, I would
guitar.
too.
We recorded one solo with it, I think.
Do you remember which solo?
No, I forgot. But it was on the first White Line.
Fight to Survive?
No, it was on the first White Line album.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. I forgot which one.
Yeah.
And but stuff like that kept happening there, and it was really inspiring.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got to imagine there's probably quite a few moments where something like that would happen.
Yes.
You get starstruck by like, wow, that guy just showed up. Like, especially Hollywood in the 80s, because it was just, everyone was there at the time. It really was.
Yeah, the three Amigos, remember these guys? from the film The Three Amigos.
Oh, yeah, Chevy Chase. Yeah.
They were recording their vocals there.
What?
Yeah.
Did you get to meet him?
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And I did Alice there, and who else? John, was it John Denver?
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy was recording. And what was the trumpet player?
Kenny G?
No, he's sax player.
Oh.
Black guy.
Bradford Marsalis?
Nope. Real.
Louis Armstrong?
No.
We're not
Dizzy Gillespie?
Nope.
We're not schooled on trumpet players.
No.
Sorry.
No.
We named the three that
And
we
I
know.
ran into him. There was this dark hallway, you know, and I ran into him in that hallway.
Uh-huh.
And tons of people
Yeah.
that drove up there, and they were recording there. There was 3 studios.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a lot of inspiration.
That's cool.
So that was my favorite place.
Yeah.
And the best part about it is I was going to do X, the band X, you know, and I was looking for studios, and I got to Amigo, and I talked to Chet, and he goes, well, you know, we got these 2, the main rooms, that one and that one doesn't have a console in it.
Yeah.
So we have the consoles. Which console would you like in the room? And I told them, well, yeah, I would like the MCI console. We put that in here. So they did.
Wow.
And then I go, if you would have an SSL, I would even mix here. So they bought an SSL and put it in this tiny, tiny little room. And eventually Metallica got mixed on that one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there's some history
I didn't know
there.
you worked with X.
Yeah.
What
that
did
was one of the first bands.
Isn't X like a punk rock band?
That was a
Yeah.
punk rock band. They were on Elektra, and Elektra wanted me to make them pop.
Did you do their version of Wild Thing?
Yes. That
I
was the
love
very
that.
first thing.
That's in the
And-
movie Major League.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we did the record.
Oh, hang on, I can tell you.
I'm not real up on X's catalog.
would
I know
have-
just a few songs of theirs.
I would
but-
have to.
But that, like that, but their version of Wild Thing, when you hear that compared to their earlier stuff, it's like, wow, this is like almost a different band.
Right.
But it's but that it makes sense that was you because it's got that really big sound
Yeah.
to it.
That was done at Total Excess in Redondo Beach.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
That's
Actually,
wild. You got X Ain't Love Grand.
that's the record.
But it's in between Raven and Striper.
Wow, you had an interesting year that year.
Yeah. And that's right. That was in the early 80s, right?
Let's see. That would have been
5, 6.
85
Yeah.
was the X album.
Yeah.
That's when that came out. Yeah, so it was 84. Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, the band was an underground punk band.
Yeah.
But the label wanted me to make them successful and wanted me to make them pop.
Yeah.
So I did. The band hated me.
I was
for
going to
it.
say, how did the band feel about that?
How'd they feel
label
about it at the
loved it.
time? Like right off the bat, were they cool with it, or let's try it, or they say, "What the
we
hell,
did
metal
it.
guy"?
Yeah, we just did it, you
Yeah.
know, and that's what came out. And I think afterwards they were not too happy with it, but they had a hit, and so there was some money coming in, and that's never wrong,
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and also the John Doe from X is he's a great actor. He's
amazing,
Had
yeah.
several great roles, and especially back in those days. Yeah.
I remember funny story with the A&R guy. I don't want to mention his name at the time from Elektra.
All right.
You know, we did a cover version of All or Nothing. It was, I think, 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent a cassette of that to the A&R guy, and he goes, yeah, it's cool, but it's too long.
At 2 minutes and 15 seconds?
Well, so I go, what do you mean? It's 2 minutes and 15 seconds long. He goes, no, but it says 5:10 here. No, that's the date.
A real genius there.
And that kind of stuff would happen like every day.
Yeah.
Small Faces.
Small face.
Small Faces was the band.
Yeah. What were you happy with A&R people for the most part, or were there some that just drove you up the wall?
My job was to circumvent A&R people.
Yeah, keep them out of the room.
And what you would do at the time is, okay, we want this song to be the first single. So you invite the A&R people down to sing background vocals on that song. So now that was their song, and they were involved, and it was the first single.
Wow.
That's pretty smart.
And it was always like you would record it, and by the time they left the studio, you already had erased it. You know, and when later on it was, oh, I can hear myself.
That's me.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you clearly.
Is that something you go to them and say, hey, we want you to come do this, or they just happen to be there?
You go ahead and head them off in the past.
Just call them up and doing backing vocals.
Let's go ahead.
We think you guys would be great.
You do what we call the football vocals.
Yeah.
You know, where you had 20 people, and it didn't matter.
Right.
You know, so, but I'm probably going to get shot about all those secrets, but
You're retired. You can enjoy.
Yeah.
You can say it now. But that's brilliant though, because it's like, let's go ahead and make them feel loved, and then get them out of the room.
feeling involved. You know,
That's funny.
Sure, yeah. And then they got stakes in it because then they can tell their friends, you know that song? I'm singing on that.
singing on that, and I bought sushi that day.
Well, and I've heard I've like a lot of comedians that have done television work and stuff. They'll open up a little bit about behind the scenes stuff, and and creatives that work in television and movies will say, you know, you start with idea A, and then you end up with X product, and in that process you've got all these different people where their specialty is not in the creative. They're in the offices, but they want to come down and give their 2 cents and feel like they're important. I assume you dealt with that quite a bit back in the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've had people, again, I don't want to name names. I do that when I write the book and I passed away, then Tina can sell that.
Right.
I had people coming to rehearsal and go, well, the ending of that song, blah, 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 it should be this and this and this. And then we did the record, and these A&R guys would come down to listen to it. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, you had a camera on the other side of the studio window where it was dark, and then you see them trying to hit the groove with their feet, which was always like,
on the 1 and 3.
Maybe, yeah. So, and then I play that song, and I go, so, you like that new ending better? Oh, yeah. Feel much better. Same ending as before.
Oh, and they have no idea.
They have no idea. So it's basically just, they have to say something, but, and then again, there's other A&R guys like John Collardner that exactly know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And where you go, really? Is that going to happen? And then you do it, and you go, he's right.
Yeah. He's a fascinating character.
Oh, unbelievable.
So you probably did several records with him involved, right?
Yeah. I did.
Yeah, he was really looked at like a guru back in the day as for like just knowing how to steer bands in the right direction and stuff.
Yeah.
But also seemed like he could be really stern and difficult when he wanted to.
Right, and as a producer, you should probably listen to him.
Yeah.
Because he got into more stuff than you have up to that point.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done more records than I have.
Oh, his
up
resume,
to that point. But now I don't know anymore. But,
he's one of the few people with a resume about as good as yours.
Right.
Yeah.
And he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. And he does look like Jesus. Yeah. Have you ever seen John Collardner?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're talking about A&R people, or people from the industry putting their 2 cents in. Now, when you're a producer and you're working on an album, it's got to be a delicate balance, though, because musicians are known, and creatives in general are known to have, ego and insecurity a lot of the time. So they come in with their vision. This is especially if it's like a band's first record. This is what we've been playing for 2 years. This is the way we sound. This is what we're going to do. But you're brought in as a producer to steer them in the right direction. And if you hear something that could make the song better, do you almost have to play psychologist sometimes to know how to massage them into, going along with what you want to do.
75% of producing is psychology.
Yeah.
And I don't say I have the recipe for it, but the way I feel is, okay, here's this band. They have a certain style. If they didn't have something that was great, I wouldn't want to work with them.
Right.
So take what's great and bring that out. So I would become the fourth, fifth, sixth member of the band, and we would talk about that. We'd go, okay, that song, what if you do this and this there and there and there? And we would go into pre-production. That was a very important thing back then. We would go for a month. We would go into a rehearsal room, set up so everybody could hear everybody, which is sometimes not the case in their rehearsal room.
Right.
They always hear
It's
themselves,
just blasting,
you know. And when they hear the other guitar player, they go, what is he playing? So, and we would be in a rehearsal room and we'd go over the songs and then record them in a very simple way on a 2-track or a little cassette machine. And then we listen to it and go, what do you think? Is that better or is that better? And I would go along with what everybody would decide that's better. And sometimes I would never insist on what I said is going to be the law,
Right.
But I would always try it out. And I would ask of them to try it out too. So if there's a part that I thought should be different from what the part that they came up with, okay, let's try it, let's record it, and then we listen to it.
Yeah.
And then let the whole band decide what it should be. And that has worked for me fantastically.
Yeah.
In some cases, you have to be a little bit more stern, but I never 100% insisted that's how it's got to be.
Right.
And, time shows I've not always been right. So sometimes their version was the better one.
Right. That's a good way of going about it, I would think.
Yeah.
But then there's other producers, that Bob Ezrin, that will rule with an iron fist.
Yeah.
And say, nope, if you want this to sound good, you're going to do it my way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess there's something to be said for that as well. But like the psychology behind it, that's got to be like you said, most of the job is just working with people and the relationships you have to deal with. And
you have to know the people. That's why I said you have to become one of the band members to be friends with those people. Sometimes, like a guitar player, I would go, can you try this and this? They would try it right away and maybe like it or maybe not like it. But sometimes a guitar player would refuse to try anything that any outside person suggested, and then you kind of have to put the seed out, and then 3 days later he goes, oh, I got this part, which is the part that you wanted him to play.
You make them think it's their idea.
Yeah. And then you finally got it to where you want it anyway.
That's smart.
But it doesn't matter because the end result is that record.
Yeah.
And
right.
that, that's what's counts.
In that situation, everybody's goal is the same, so it's best to get on the same page and try to work it out as best you can. When you are going into a project, how quick can you tell if it's going to be a good experience or a bad experience? Beforehand.
Before I go into it. I used to get the demo first, and I had to like that in order to start anything. And then I went and met the people. And I had to get along with at least 4 of the 5 people or 3 of the 4. Sometimes there's one guy that's a little different, but he's a great player or a great singer. But I had to get along, and it had to be fun.
Right.
And then we would go into pre-production, and by that time, normally it would come to the record, to do the record. But I don't think there was ever. Well, in the very, very beginning, there was something where I said, well, to take your grandma's money, here is your money back, and you find somebody else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if there was anyone where you got into pre-production and you're like, I can't work with these guys.
But I can't even remember the band anymore, or the name of the band, you know, and they never amounted to anything anyway.
Was it just that they were terrible musicians, or just hard to be around?
It could be anything.
Yeah.
It could be anything. It could be after you hear the songs, or you go, yeah, we could change those songs, and they would refuse to change them, or, you know, but it could be anything.
Okay.
Terrible musicians, you can point out right away most of the time, and then you can go, I don't think I have time, you know.
What about when you get to the point where you say, okay, the demo sounds good, now I want to go meet these guys? Do you go meet them at a bar, where they live?
No, at the rehearsal room.
At the rehearsal room?
Or at my house, or wherever, you know.
Has there ever been any situations where then you realize, you know, think, damn, the music was good, but I can't deal with this shit?
I can't remember. Because at that point, if the music is good, you go, all right, this could be an asshole, but the music is really, really good.
It's going to be worth it.
Or you started working with the asshole, and you know, he became a friend, or she became a friend. And so there's situations where you know it's going to be tough to work with, you know. But then again, afterwards, it turns out, wow, big successful record.
Okay.
You know, because I see it that way. Let's say you're a singer, and you stand in front of 25,000 people. Try that once.
Right.
You know, you're on that stage. You have to be a special character to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And then to handle that crowd, again, there's one more step in that direction.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have an ego to pull that off.
Sure.
I mean, there's
at least a little bit.
The confidence is most of the challenge with that. Just getting up and doing it.
And I couldn't do that. You know, I couldn't. If I have to go up on stage, it's like, oh, God, you know. In a little club of 150 people, you know, I would go, okay, we're doing this for this band tonight, and everybody has to sing along.
Sorry I did that to you at Rockin' Pot. Having you up on stage. But yeah, well, so was there, one thing I want to add, and I know there's a few that come to mind from past times we've talked to you, is what were some of the musicians that just would floor you with, like, their ability to knock everything out in one take, like, every time you went to
Well, one take is one thing, but being good, even if you have to play it 3 or 4 times, you know, Vito
that's the
was
first one
definitely
I thought of.
the one where I go, holy Moses, you know, and Steve Stevens.
Oh yeah, great one.
Nuno, and there's a whole bunch more. You know, there's a bunch of people that are amazing. There's Jax. Just recently, my last product that I've done is Jax Hollow, and she blew my mind.
Yeah.
You know, she sat down and played that stuff and go, how do you just play that, you know? And same with her vocals. Really, really good. And after I was just really lucky in my career, and there's a whole bunch of those people.
Yeah.
You know, Alice Cooper being one of them.
Oh, sure.
You know, and a whole bunch. Zach.
Yeah.
And Rachel and the other guys on Skid Row, they're all like, you really just played that in one take, you know? And so I got lucky in my career and had a whole bunch of those.
Do you think the world's ever going to hear from Vito Bratta again?
No, I don't think so. I wish the world would hear from him again, and I would come out of retirement in a second to work with Vito, and he's pretty much the only guy. We've talked, and I've heard his side about it, and I do understand his side about it, and it's just sad, you know, that such a talent is all of a sudden gone, and you know, but I do understand. But he was like one of the very, very top guys.
He was one of the few guitarists that back in the day that I thought rivaled Eddie Van Halen.
Well, there's a few. There's George Lynch.
Oh yeah, there's others, but
and then there's other people, and Vito was one of them. And when I talked to all of them, they would say, "We've played the same stuff that Eddie has played forever. We just can't play it anymore because Eddie is signed."
Right.
Yeah. So that's when it stopped for them, and they had to come up with something different than hammer-ons and stuff like that.
But I mean, with Vito, like there was something so natural about his playing,
right? And he still made it his own.
Yeah, but the only person I can compare it to is Stevie Ray Vaughan, where. Yes, the playing is technically sound, but it's the emotion that comes through the playing. It's like you can't just replicate that.
No.
It comes from in here.
Right.
And the way when Vito played it was just flowed out of him.
Yeah.
And that's very rare to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on top of that, all of White Line at the time and myself, we had the same ideas. We had the same likes, we like motorcycles and all that kind of stuff. So, like I said, I was one of the bands, and then at that point you don't stick out, And Vito and I, we talked about the same stuff, loved cars at the time, and so that all counts in there a little bit, So if I would have to deal with a guitar player that shoots elephants or something like that, I couldn't do it.
You're not going to work with Ted Nugent anytime soon.
I don't think so.
Okay.
One of my wives was his Ted Nugent's kid's nanny.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'll probably know a little bit more about him than you do.
Wow. It's all an act, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, he has something going,
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily have to agree with me,
Oh, sure. Great player, though. I mean, I always enjoyed his playing.
Yeah, he was a great performer and a great player.
So you've done a lot of producing and mixing. As a producer that's gone through the whole process with the band, has come up with the music, put it all together, is it hard to hand it off to a different mixer and master?
For me, it would be impossible.
Yeah.
I would really, really no. Because the thing is that when you start a project, you work on it a certain way, and you do certain things because you want to do different things or some things in the mix.
Yeah.
You make that snare sound like that because you want it to sound like that in the mix. And if you hand that off, that other person might interpret that completely wrong.
Right.
And then they go, "Oh, that's not a good snare sound, let's replace it." But you had something in mind, Just think about the Van Halen records. That snare sound.
Yeah.
When I heard it, I go, Jesus, somebody fucked up bad. And then the next day, from then on, everybody that came to me, can you get us that Van Halen snare sound? So, there's something there. And they probably meant to do that.
Yeah.
And police that snare sound. They meant to do that.
Right.
But I think I rather was involved in the whole project from the first minute to the mastering.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I think most of them I have.
Yeah.
I have mixed some records for other people.
Right.
But there's like Metallica, but that was recorded fantastically.
That's one of the greatest sounding records ever.
Yeah.
To this day it is.
And, even other records. But it is, even as a mixer, it's hard at that point to understand what did they mean by that? What did they want to bring across? And why does it sound so weird? Did they just mess up? Do I have to fix it? Or do I use it and make it a positive thing? That is very hard to decide.
Does the producer ever show up and go, hey, this is what we're thinking? Is the band there going, bring this up, bring that down, do this, do that? or is it left completely in your trust at that point?
I had more the band show up, and like in Metallica, and bring their idea across. You know, I had a couple of situations where the producer showed up, but I think it's only, on Warlock.
Yeah, okay.
I forgot what the name was of the record. True Steel, I think it was.
Sounds right.
Yeah, and they showed up and then told me how the snare was meant to be and stuff like that. And then you respect that, you know, because that's the guy who worked from the beginning with that and did that for a certain reason.
Yeah.
Back in '82, you worked with the Plasmatics and their album Coup d'etat. Wendy O. Williams is known as pretty an outlandish character in the history of rock. What was it like working with her? Was she as wild and crazy there as the persona, or was she more business in the studio?
Well, number one, she's one of the nicest people I knew.
Yeah.
You know, she passed away, and then she was one of the nicest people I knew. She was a very, very good singer.
Yeah.
The problem was that she would sing in the control room right next to me, and I had to wear earplugs because her voice is so loud that you couldn't be in the same room with it, you know. But she was a nice person, tried to do her best and did her best, and worked hard, and you know, there was a little bit of craziness, but I think that was more outside of the studio than than during recording. And that was Dieter Dirks produced that one, and I was just the engineer on it.
Right. I didn't know you worked on that record.
Yeah.
Is that the one that had all the Gene Simmons involvement?
No.
Or that was the one before that, wasn't it?
After, I think.
Or
Some
after
of the
it.
Tank.
This was a Plasmatics album. That was a Wendy O. Williams solo album.
That's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the Wow album. Okay.
Yeah, I really liked the Plasmatics and Wendy O. Williams.
Yeah. And again, you know, ideas. I mean, the videos that they made were like, really?
Yeah.
Driving a school bus through a bunch of TVs and you know, that was just like, wow, man.
That was wild.
That's awesome.
Did you have, so, you know, you were booked pretty solid through that whole decade, and so one project right after another.
Yeah.
Were there projects that you got approached to do by certain bands that you had to turn down, and then you go, oh, wow, now that one went on to multi-platinum success, and I couldn't do it because I was doing this other one?
For different reasons, yes. One of them was Appetite for Destruction.
Oh, you were approached to do that?
Yeah, I was supposed to mix it.
Really?
And back then, Ellen Niven was the manager, and Ellen Niven and Don Dokken and I we stayed at the same house. So Ellen Niven was also the manager for Great White, and he asked me if I could do it, and for some reasons I turned it down. You know, that was like quite an expensive mistake that I made at the time. The other one was Pearl Jam. Yeah.
The 10 album?
How good would it have been if Michael Wagener would have produced that?
One of the listener questions was that why didn't you do any grunge stuff?
That was never really my music. You know, I mean, Raven got close.
Yeah.
You know, but it was just fast metal, but grunge itself was. Nobody cared about the tuning anymore. They didn't care about amplifiers humming, and the timing was something. And I didn't like that.
This wasn't for you.
No.
Yeah.
No. So, and also, if I would have done Pearl Jam and Guns N' Roses,
oh, wow.
Which other producer would have been there in the 80s? I probably would have done it all.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I guarantee you, whoever did those records got a bunch of jobs out of that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, Mike
Mike
Klink did
Mike Klink, yeah.
Although I heard several people turn Guns N' Roses down. From, like, Paul Stanley was approached to... Well, Paul Stanley was approached to... Well, I got to think it was really more... Slash says the only reason we had Paul Stanley come over is because Steven Adler's a big Kiss fan. But... So Steven was like, let's get Paul Stanley to produce the record. Paul had never produced anything other than Kiss records. And Paul showed up, and he sees these guys that are all just laying around wasted, and he's like, I'm not working with these guys. And so, I can imagine that. I mean, I mean, till that album took off, they were like probably the most destructive band on earth at the time. You know, no, probably most people around Hollywood didn't think they were going to amount to much because of how dangerous they were. You know,
I never even heard the music up to that point.
Really?
Up to the point where I turned it down, I've never heard the music. That might have changed my mind.
yeah.
You know, but
Yeah, well, pretty unreliable group of guys at that time, you know, and
it's pretty well known that you weren't one to party with the bands. You know, you were there with a purpose and had work to do.
well, I'm not into drugs. I'm absolutely not into alcohol, even though through some of the records I would drink with the band. Never in the studio, never at work.
Yeah.
But we would go out at night and stuff like that in the late 80s or something like that. But since 1988, I haven't had a drop of alcohol.
that's awesome.
So, and I'm not missing it.
Yeah.
You know? And I was never, back then, I was never like, oh, I got to drink something.
Right.
We would just drink because we were hanging out.
Yeah,
Social
it was
drink.
a social
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
What happened in '88? You get drunker than you ever got before? And decided to give
Yes.
it up? Yeah?
Skid Row record.
I was going to say, which
Yeah.
band does it fall
First
for
Skid
that?
Row record. And Johnny came up, Johnny Bon Jovi, and we had Muff Divers. And you know what a Muff Diver is?
No.
It's a pitcher of, I think, 4 or 5 sorts of alcohol with fruit juice.
Oh,
so when you
Lord.
drink it, you don't even realize it's
Yeah.
alcohol.
It sneaks up on
And
you.
I ended up that we recorded at Royal Recorders, and that studio was in a big hotel, the big Playboy Mansion Hotel.
Yeah.
And you know, there was a bathroom and there was a big hole in the wall. How you got into the bathroom? I never got in because I kept running against the wall
Oh,
right
geez.
next to it, and that's how drunk I was. And then I kind of thought, let's not do that.
It's like, what am I doing?
So we're talking about like the 80s. It's a big party scene all the time. You know, you talk about a lot of the bands you work with are known for their hard drug partying days back then. Did any of them ever treat you differently because you wouldn't partake in drugs like that?
No. See, my opinion is that when you take drugs or drink alcohol, a lot of alcohol, you're not in control anymore.
Right.
And I'm a total control freak.
Yeah, and you
So-
have to be.
And you have to be, because you're all of a sudden responsible for the life of 5 people.
Right.
Or 6 when you include yourself. You know? So that's a big responsibility. And at least you have to do the best you can to your own ability.
Right.
You might fuck up anyway, but at least I did the best I could.
Yeah.
You know,
More
so
impaired.
that to me, I think that has been respected all the time.
Okay.
And on the other hand, I've seen where other producers were in, and they would get in on the partying and stuff like that. They were not as respected, you know?
Yeah.
Because now you become to the same, drug-wise, the same level as the band. And they don't trust themselves.
Right.
That means, why should they trust you if you take the same drugs?
Yeah, that makes
You
a
know?
lot of sense.
Luckily, I've never, ever taken any cocaine, or I hit one hit of, what's it called, a joint?
Yeah.
One, and that was at a Little River Band concert at the Hollywood Bowl.
Wow.
And that was must have been in 1980.
Oh, wow.
And
That was a requirement to be there.
completely freaked out.
Wow.
The girl
Oh,
that
really?
drove us home, I go, slow down. She was going 20 miles an hour. You know? And I completely, with that one hit, I completely lost it.
Wow.
So, and by now, if I smell it, I throw up.
Oh, really?
So if you would be smoking anything there, I would throw up.
Wow.
That meant also that bands that smoked a little dope, that's okay.
Right.
You know, if you're not on like heroin or something like
Sure.
that,
Right.
that's okay. But they had to do it
You
outside.
gotta take it outside.
If it's cold outside, that's frowned upon.
Yeah.
You know, so, but Yes, I remember those.
And that's why they recorded in Wisconsin.
Yeah, right.
It's too cold outside, so
Yeah.
get to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you have standing rules, like say, all right, do what you want on your time, but when you're on my time, you're not bringing crap in here and doing
Right.
stuff.
There was absolutely no smoking in the studio.
Yeah.
Not even in the front, in the lounge.
Yeah.
Which is weird, but, especially around technical gear, it'll spoil if you smoke around it.
Right.
And I mean, I smoked 60 cigarettes a day. And
3
till
packs a day.
1984,
Wow.
till I got to do Striper, nobody in the band smoked. And the guy, we went to his studio, recorded a single before we did Soldiers, and the guy who owned the studio was not allowed smoking. And I go, here's my chance.
Now I guess I quit.
Yeah.
One day to the next, I stopped smoking from 60 to 0.
Wow.
But then my hand was not going into the cookie jar. It was the cookie jar.
Yeah.
So I would eat candy, crazy, gained a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And I think, when I think about it now, I think it might have been good not to smoke,
No, sure.
And with 60 cigarettes, I started smoking when I was 12.
Wow.
You could pull him on the
machines.
on the machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are illegal now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah. Well, so I should bring up Striper. I mean, they must have been very professional to work with those guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And there was basically it was a tryout if we were compatible, and yes, we were. And doing that single, what was it? The Triple Tree Studios or something like that. I forgot where it was. Somewhere in L.A. And we did the first single there, and then a couple of months later we started on Soldiers
Yeah.
at Amigo.
And then one of the listeners had asked about Soldiers Under Command. We got Michael up to do a panel on the making of the record at Rockin' Pod a couple years ago. And he just spoke in very glowing terms about the job you did on that and working with you.
We had a good time.
So So you enjoyed making that one?
Oh, they were amazing musicians.
Yeah.
I remember we did. Normally, when you do the drums, you set up all the drums, and then at the end, when you have all the microphones set up, you do one take, and you take that home and listen at home. And I said that to Robert, we could do one take, and we take it home and we start tomorrow. That was at 7 o'clock at night. And he goes, no, I want to do my drums tonight. He did his drums till 7 o'clock in the morning. He did all his takes.
Wow.
And most of them were first takes.
Wow, nice.
He is a monster drummer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all monsters.
And Michael, he gets credit for being the singer, but what an amazing lead guitar player that guy is.
Yeah. And it was funny. I remember it. We were still doing one song, a few vocals. And I was already in the other studio doing the mix for another band. And I think it might have been Alice Cooper. I'm not sure. And then all of a sudden, Michael comes into that studio. Can you come over there? I can't work with the assistant. And I go, okay. So I go, okay, I'm going to sit in the back and just watch a little bit. And Michael is trying to hit that high note, which was impossible to hit, and he sings it, and the guy goes, oh, that sucked. I go, out. You're fired.
Oh, wow.
You're fired right now. I don't ever want to see you again.
Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, Michael was like tense and
Sure. I mean, you're
I sat
trying
down.
something so hard, and then all you got to say is that sucked.
That sucked.
That's terrible.
Let me see you do it,
Yeah, and then I sat down. We did it in the next 10 minutes. It was all done.
Nice.
But that's it. That you got to have that relationship and that feeling for it. You never say that sucked because you're out of a job right after that.
Sure.
So,
I've never heard of negative reinforcement really working in a situation like that.
But some people do it like that.
Yeah.
So I was never a friend of it, but some people do it like that.
Although I'm sure you've had times where somebody would do a take and you'd be like, it's good, but I think you can do better. And you push
but you say it like that.
Yeah.
It's always positive.
Yeah.
You know? That was one of your good takes, so now let's do more of your good takes.
Yeah, but don't say that sucked.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's pretty awful.
No.
I recently came across a bootleg demo CD that I guess somebody got a hold of and released, and it had a bunch of Ozzy songs on it from the Osmosis sessions. And I was wondering, were there any songs that you recorded with Ozzy that didn't make it onto the album?
Well, I can tell you how it was.
Yeah.
It was, we did No More Tears, and No More Tears was very successful. Then the record company came to me and said, okay, we want you to produce the next Ozzy record. It wasn't called Osmosis then yet.
Yeah.
And we want you to make it exactly like No More Tears. And as you know, No More Tears had the big snare reverb and the big
it's a huge
sounds
sounding
and
record.
huge sounding
Love
record, which basically helped sell it.
Yeah.
You know? And so we started doing that. And halfway through, we went into a writing break. We had 7 songs that we recorded, and I mixed them kind of rough, most of it. Then the record company came and said, now we want it to sound like Soundgarden. By the way, I spoke wrong. I didn't turn down Pearl Jam. I turned down Soundgarden.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but around the same time.
Yeah. Might have been the Bad Motorfinger record.
I think that's what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I would have loved to have heard that.
Yeah.
and so now we wanted to sound like Soundgarden, and I go, "Oh, you crazy? Soundgarden wants to sound like Ozzy," you know.
Yeah.
So then and if you start something a certain way, and you have a certain picture in mind where the rooms are and how big it is, you can't just take that off and have a good sounding record.
Right.
You know, so I tried it, but I never really liked that mix either.
Yeah.
And so since we were on the writing break, they gave it to Michael Beinhorn,
Right.
who did Soundgarden. You know, so, and he re-recorded everything.
Different players too, right?
Different players.
Yeah.
Zach wasn't on it anymore, and it was a whole different thing. Different tempo, different pitch.
Yeah.
Like the first, what was it? Perry Mason was lower because Ozzy had always complained, it's so high if I have to sing that live, you know. I go, but it sounds better. So we did it in the high range, and they did it. They were not as stable against his opinion.
Well, and a lot of his albums after that were tuned lower.
Which I understand.
I mean, I get that you can't keep hitting those stratospheric notes forever, you know.
Sure.
But I mean, I can imagine your reaction when you heard the final product of that. You must have been like, "What the hell did they do to this?"
I almost died.
Yeah,
I almost died. And as I don't know if you know, if I ever played it to you, but I had both versions, my mixed but not mastered version against the CD that was released here in time, and we switched.
you did,
against it.
yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like, really? They released that and not this, you know?
Because your version had like the orchestral stuff in it, right? Was that?
Yeah, we had a
The
saxophone.
C on the other side.
song,
Yeah, that's what it is.
and we did a whole 56-piece orchestra on Amy, which wasn't even on the record later, and I don't know. Sometimes I don't get those decisions,
Right.
you know?
Well, I guess in that case, it was more a sign of the times. Is like the grunge thing's big now, so
Yes.
now we're going to try to acquiesce to that.
Right. And I don't know what those demos are that you talk about. If they're
what I got here is there's Perry Mason, and then there's a version of Ghost Behind My Eyes that's on it.
I've never recorded that one.
All right, and then there's a song called Feels So Good to Be Bad.
I never recorded that one either.
There's a song called Frustrated, Yes, I'm Hated.
Nope.
Say Yeah, Yeah.
That could be anything.
Yeah. My Jekyll Doesn't Hide.
Nope.
So these could have been Michael Beinhorn
They could
recordings.
Could have
other
been.
demos, yeah.
The
Yeah.
Bitch Won't Go, My New Rock and Roll, and Too Far Gone.
I don't think I've even listened to all of those.
Yeah, they're out there. I think I saw them on YouTube, but I was like, I wonder if any of these are Michael Wagener versions of these songs. But I always wanted to ask that.
I think the Perry Mason one is.
Yeah.
I'm because I remember him playing it for us.
Don't read them, but these are the ones that we did.
So yeah, folks listening, be jealous. We're looking at the see the original CD.
Wow, I've never heard those.
Those were all 7 of them were done and mixed till.
Stairway to Heaven. No, I'm just joking.
And then the live ones were from the Osmosis for the tour,
Oh yeah.
the No More BS tour.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and this Black Sabbath live was with Black Sabbath, where Ozzy, Black Sabbath opened up for Ozzy in California.
Yeah.
And Ozzy came out and did 4 songs with him.
Wow.
And those were the 4 songs. And I have all that on video, too, because I was in the recording truck, and we had a camera on stage recording and seeing where all the microphones were and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow,
VHS.
man, I want to hear those 2 songs on there I've never heard before.
Slow Burn.
Yeah. What's the other
See,
one? The
there's
Enemy?
Perry Mason. There's Perry Mason Dry Mix.
Yeah.
That was the changed one.
Living with the Enemy.
3, 4, 5.
I thought we weren't going to name off song titles now.
He started it.
Okay, he started it.
Yeah, but I mean, those are the songs that are on.
Most of them.
Oh,
Slow
this-
Burn's not, I don't think.
It's probably called something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of that's working titles. Like we said,
Oh, yeah.
Well, the one on YouTube, Say Yeah, Yeah, that's got to be a
Yeah,
working title.
something
That's
else
not a real
somebody
song
named.
title.
Old LA Tonight.
Yeah, that's
that one's
on there.
Yeah, I like that song.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So,
Ah, what
That's it.
could have been.
But I really love your version of See You on the
20
Other
grand.
Side.
Yeah.
I think I've got it in my couch cushions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it.
you get the lawsuit guitar with it.
Yeah, I'm guaranteed a divorce if I buy that from
But
you.
the thing is, and I'm honest, never has any of that left the studio.
Yeah.
I might have played it for a couple of people, but it never has left the studio, and it never will.
Yeah.
So wherever they got that, I have
right.
no idea. I know that Ozzy released on his best of, he released "See You on the Other Side,"
Yeah.
and he called it the demo version.
Okay.
And
And that was your version?
that was my version,
Yeah, that
and
one's
he
out
said
there.
that's what Osmosis should have sounded like.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't very happy with the end result of, So, but
But he's Ozzy. He could have said no at any time. Well, maybe.
If
He's
Sharon,
just,
if Sharon says
please,
he can.
dear.
Yeah, I'd say if Sharon allows it.
it was. I think it was definitely the record company.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're like, we're funding it, so you're going to do it our way.
Same with when they remastered "No More Tears,"
Yeah.
and I died when I heard that. It was awful.
That's gotta, and that's happened with the Skid Row stuff. They're re-releasing this stuff, but they're brick walling the hell out of it, and that's gotta
Yeah,
drive you. That's gotta drive you crazy.
Just heard somewhere Sebastian going on about "Slave to the Grind"
Yeah.
got remastered, and he's hating it.
Oh, he hates
Yeah.
it.
I haven't even heard it yet, and I won't.
Yeah, he did an A/B test with the vinyl through his home system, and you can hear the difference. I mean, there's just no dynamics in the new stuff.
Right. So all the fuck ups that have snuck into producing records lately, they get snuck in when they remaster it.
Yeah.
And, because it can only be remastered because those tapes are nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
we did 40 Seasons, we wanted to remix some stuff from the first Skid Row record. The tapes are nowhere to be found.
Wow. Why do you think that is?
When you record something as producer, do you make yourself a copy of the masters and keep them for yourself
Of the
forever?
master, yeah, but not of the multi-track.
Right, okay.
Those were 32-track digital and 24-track analog, and the analog machine was 15 minutes, and the digital machine was 30 minutes. So there was one digital tape and 2 analog tapes that belonged together, nowhere to be found.
Dang.
It's probably the record company that lost them.
Yeah.
Do you think they just got trashed somewhere?
I have no idea. If I would know,
It's crazy.
But we were trying to find and get all the tapes together. Not one song we could get together.
Well, and I also recall a couple years ago, it was Sony or some big music clearinghouse had a giant fire, and a whole lot of original tapes got ruined from that.
That was a heartbreaker.
That could be that could be the reason for some of that stuff. Yeah,
Right.
That was tragic.
I guess when you're back then and you're living it, you don't realize you're making history. I mean, that's got to ring true for you, right? You're just working. You're just doing the best you can. You don't stop and think someday two nerdy rock guys are going to be wanting to hang out with me, and I'm trying to retire and want to be talking about all this stuff.
Yeah, you sit there and mix, and you don't realize that record's going to make it in the Library of Congress to preserve that sound.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The one thing that's missing is it's got to go to the moon.
Yeah.
Somehow. That's what the astronauts are listening to while they're flying out there.
But I mean, that has, I know it sounds cliche to say soundtrack of our lives, but you truly produce the soundtrack of a lot of people's lives.
That's because I produced so many.
But I mean, that has to be important to you, you know, to know that, you know, that a lot of us coming up as kids, you know, this is the music we fell in love with, and you're a big part of that thing.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. So, we were talking about Skid Row a little bit. Kevin Williams from the In Obscuria podcast, he wanted to know, can you talk about what happened with the United World Rebellion Chapter 3 that Skid Row was supposed to put out? The album with ZP singing?
Oh, yeah. We did a whole album, and it was during COVID. Mm-hmm. And we did the album in a completely different way than we were used to and the way we should have done it. We didn't really do pre-production on it. You know, we basically just went in and recorded it. Mm-hmm. And ZP was in England, and he just came in and here, sing on this. Mm-hmm. It was all not right. It was all, we shouldn't have done it like that. Mm-hmm. So it's all done. Mm-hmm. I have that somewhere mixed but not mastered. But at the end, Rachel said, you know what? I just want to do some more songs. At which point I had already retired.
Right.
So otherwise I would probably be doing it. Mm-hmm. But so it got finished, but not finished.
Okay.
You know, so I don't know. He's got it. They have it all, but I don't know, whatever, it's their record, whatever they need to do with it, you know. And I think it was some good stuff on there. And I'm not sure if they're going to reuse some of the stuff or even use some of the stuff that we did. Right. I don't know what the situation is.
I know Golden Robot had signed them to put it out, but because they put a press release out, I think it was last year, saying it's coming out, but nothing's happened since then.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it makes sense if Rachel wants to put more songs on it.
Right.
Maybe they're just waiting that out.
Right, and that means now if they go in now after all that COVID time and do new songs, they're not going to fit with the songs that are on there. So they will have to write a whole new album.
Yeah, they'll have to re-record a whole bunch of stuff.
Okay. A lot of people are looking forward to it.
Real close friends. Rachel and I he's the first one that got a picture of the truck. And so, but obviously I'm not doing it anymore.
Sure.
I can't do it anymore because I have no equipment.
Yeah, if they show up now, like, you're out of luck. I'm sorry.
I would have to record on the wire.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one of our favorite memories during our show, was having Rachel over here and you and him going over the stories from the first album.
Was great. And to the day, I have to say, that first Skid Row album, making it was some of the most fun I've had.
Yeah.
You know, I always had fun doing records. There's rarely ever, I mean, of like 300 records that I've done, there was maybe like 2 where I thought, I'm not too happy with that one.
What are those?
No.
I had to try. Come on, give me some.
And
Master of Puppets, okay?
Yeah. In one case, the band split up right after the record came out.
Oh no!
And what was the other? Oh, you wouldn't even know the band, from Germany.
Oh really?
And it was It was a band where if you could play more than 2 chords, you got fired from the band.
Oh, wow.
So, right there, you know.
Wow, that sounds like a pleasure to work on.
So, yeah.
Talking about German bands, you got to work with Bonfire.
Yes.
Did you guys speak German the whole time you were working on it? Mm-hmm. How refreshing was that? Was that great or what?
Except for the drummer, he was Bavarian, so
So he was just lost the whole time.
no, yeah, it was fun.
I bet.
We kind of clicked, especially Klaus, the singer, and the bass player, who's now in Taiwan. He lives somewhere over there, and he's a photographer, and we clicked. We had a good time, and on one of them, I did 2 with them.
Yeah.
And on one of them, we had Ken Mary, who was a drummer in
Amazing
Alice
drummer.
Cooper for a while, and then Fifth Angel. You guys know more about that than I do. We had him play the drums, and we sent him the rough tapes, and he came from Seattle, and on the way here, he listened to the rough tapes. He got in and played them right away.
Nice.
No questions asked. Ken Mary is amazing.
Yeah. And he's found the fountain of youth because he looks like he's 16 years old to this day.
Yeah, and have you heard what he's playing now? Oh, he is total one of those super modern.
Oh, really?
Yeah, amazing drummer, man. I mean, if anybody could do it, it was him.
Yeah.
He was on Radio Fistoniel. He was the drummer on that.
This Victor, our friend Victor Ruiz from Mars Attacks podcast says, what album did you work on that you thought would be huge and didn't make a dent? And conversely, which albums were much bigger that you worked on than you expected them to be?
Well, the one that didn't make it not because the album wasn't good, but because of political reasons in the record company, is Kane Roberts. That album to me was always like, yes, that's a great record.
Yeah.
Kane is an amazing musician, amazing singer, and overall just an amazing guy.
Yeah.
And we did a great album together, and I mixed his next album that Desmond Child, I think, produced.
Yeah, was that Saints and Sinners?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that album, I thought, the Kane Roberts album should have done really, really good.
Yeah.
It never, they kept it down in the label.
That's
I wonder why. He was perfect for that time. He had the skills. He had the look. The girls would have went crazy for him. He'd have been centerfold of every hit parader and metal edge out there.
Totally.
You're the
Political stuff.
You're the second producer we've talked to that speaks highly of him because we interviewed Desmond, and Desmond went on and on about how great and underrated Kane is.
Oh, yeah. And there's no doubt about Desmond. He's like one of the top people. And so that was the one that, and then Poison, of course, would have been the album where I thought, okay, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And it just exploded.
Yeah. I think that one shocked everybody.
Totally.
Especially everyone in that scene.
Totally.
Because they were, from what I've heard, they were a great live band and they were fun.
They were fun. They were a party band, and people didn't give a shit about the music, but they had a great time going to the show, and it exploded. So, and everybody knows my story about it.
Yeah.
So,
but although Talk Dirty to me, there's just something super catchy about that song. And I think that was one.
Most
that really,
of the songs are very catchy.
But that one, when that one hit him, that's the one that I discovered him on. When that hit MTV, I was like, damn, this is really catchy.
Yeah.
And you can't deny it's just a great party song.
Yeah.
And that just opened the door for those guys.
Yeah, and a lot of bands after them.
And they meant it. All the makeup and all, it took some guts to do all this lipstick and, but it worked, and they meant it. They were behind all that, and they were decent players. They were not like the super players, but they were also not bad.
Yeah.
Right.
So it all worked out for them.
I saw a comedian, I can't remember which comedian it was, it might have been Bill Burr, said, when that Poison first album came out, I didn't know who the band was, and I jerked off to that album cover for 2 weeks. And then I found out they were guys, so then it was just about once a month. Well,
Oh, that's the same thing. I remember getting that on cassette tape when it came out because same thing. Saw the video, I was like, "That's so much fun. That's awesome." It had elements of like Kiss to it that I liked. And my mom saw it and was like, "Oh, they're beautiful." I'm like, "Them are dudes." And my dad's like, "What is he listening to?"
Oh, my parents were horrified when I brought that album home. They were like, "Those are guys?" I was like, "Yeah." And then I got into Kiss like a year later, and they're like, "Well, they look like clowns, but at least they don't look like women." It's a step up.